Past teachers of present celebrities, famous people, what were they like? My mom taught Kanye West's music theory class in high school. She said he insisted he would one day be a famous rapper. And that he was a decent student but sometimes a bit stubborn. Overall not that noticeable. Although he did like freestyling. He and some other students threw a little baby shower for my mom while she was pregnant with my sister. Which is nice. I met a guy who taught Kanye's English class in high school. Said he got a B. Did well on the poetry unit. Overall good student. This guy and your mom must know each other. It's a small world starts playing. My 4th grade math teacher also taught LeBron James. She said he was obsessed with basketball. When asked what he was going to be when he grew up, he said he was going to be in the NBA. When she told him he needed a backup plan, he just looked into her soul and said, "No. I'm going to be in the NBA." Into her soul. LOL. One of my high school teachers had Kristen Bell in her class for a few years. She said that Kristen was a very bright student. Always well liked. And she had a beautiful singing voice and was the lead in the school plays. One particular memory she had of Kristen was when she was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Surprisingly, it wasn't the main cast, but rather the Munchkins who stole the show. Because they were the varsity football team walking on their knees through the auditorium. Kristen was supposed to sing at her wedding but had to cancel because she had just been hired for a job, which turned out to be Veronica Mars. I was 2 years behind her at Shrine High School. It was an odd transition seeing someone you vaguely know become very famous. Even in high school. She was in regional Rite Aid commercials. That was strange enough. Then my friends started having viewing parties when she'd make an appearance on The Shield or had 10 minutes in a David Mamet movie. She had a couple of TV movies and then suddenly she was Veronica Mars and a star. Edit. My friend and I went to see Pootie Tang opening day. Because we heard she was in it. Turns out she had roughly 2 minutes of screen time during the end credits. My econ teacher taught Michael Phelps. He said that no one knew who Michael was before the Olympics. As soon as he came back though. Whenever he was in school. He was really cocky and obnoxious. But since he rarely was in school. He didn't really have much experience with him after his freshman year. In his defense. He won a shit ton of gold medals. And apparently all the Olympic athletes fuck the bejesus out of each other in Olympic Village. So let me ask you. If you were in school. Went to the Olympics. And plowed some smockin' ass Eastern European track stars. Wouldn't you be a little bit cocky and obnoxious? Bill Murray went to my high school way before me, but there is a story that I would like to believe is real. That he got the record for most amount of detentions, called jugs, for someone who graduated from the school, and when a kid broke it years later he took him out to lunch. Ah. That was a Catholic high school. I'm glad a jug wasn't unique to my school. It means justice and a God, which we found pretty amusing. Not a teacher. But a former supervisor of mine went to college with Fred Rogers. She said he was exactly the same guy as he was on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Every time I read something about him, it reaffirms that he was exactly what he purported to be. My hairstylist was Mariah Carey's cosmetology teacher when she attended Bose's vocational school in Green Lawn, Huntington, New York. Said Mariah was a bit of a diva. And was not terribly interested in learning the trade of hair and makeup. Wanted to sing instead. I guess that worked out. My mom said she went to high school with Mariah. She told me that Mariah was 2 years older and was actually a bully. No surprise. She was a total diva. My mom found out that Mariah would get up really early for school to get ready. She said she would take a needle to her eyelashes so each one was straight and perfect. Deleted. My so and I met Steph at a bar in a small college town after a Death Cab for Cutie show in '08, I think. We bought him a couple rounds and ended up talking to him for a bit. I had no idea who he was. But my so was so excited to meet him. He was an absolute gentleman and very, very sweet. Even telling us when the team was practicing the next day so we could watch for a bit. My so still has the picture he took with him up as his profile pic on FB. Edit. Concert was in 2009. I'm an anthropology professor who taught Kate Beaton. The cartoonist who draws, Hark a Vagrant, http://www.harkavagrant.com. She was smart and funny. And very quiet. I try to use engaging learning activities in my classes. And that year asked students to do a drawing that depicted one of the key points in the assigned reading for that day. Her group did a 4-panel cartoon that was spot on and very funny. I kept it. And pull it out whenever I do that exercise now. She wasn't a past teacher of a celeb. But my bio teacher in high school went to the same school as Dennis Leary and he asked her to their senior prom and she turned him down. He brought it up in an interview after he got famous and said that she was right for turning him down because he was a total dork in high school. My friend's mom knew Bruce Springsteen pre-fame. He even asked her out. But she turned him down because he was a total nerd and his shitty music was never going to take him anywhere. Your story is nicer. I've got a flip story. I was partially taught how to fish by Jimmy Carter. He was very encouraging to 8-year-old me. My grandfather taught him to fly fish while he was at Camp David. My grandfather was a game warden there. My English teacher had John Travolta in his basketball team that he coached at the time. He said he was very annoying and he told him that he wouldn't make it anywhere in life. A pure English teacher's nose with a rubber hose. My mother's best friend taught Matthew McConaughey. She said he was one of her favorite students because he was so sweet. Apparently he came to see her and talked to her class when he first started acting. Seems pretty cool. Favoritum studento sounds like a Harry Potter spell that makes you the teacher's pet. Well, the voice of Boots the monkey from Dora the Explorer goes to high school with some of my friends. Apparently he's extremely awkward and he's also not exactly the type of person this question was about. Benny the Bull used to go to my school. He also played the youngest kid in Grounded for Life. I didn't really know him that well but he always got the leads in the school musicals and his signing voice was great. A coworker of mine once punched Bon Jovi in the face when they were classmates in Sayreville High School. I feel the same way every time I see his directed commercials. My old English teacher taught Colleen Ballinger aka Miranda Sings. And reported she was very quiet. Full of teen angst. And not funny. Well, at least she's consistent. My mom went to school with Trent Reznor. Said he was quiet but when you actually got to know him he was a talking machine. Trent Reznor? You mean Trent Reznor? Apparently one of my teachers taught John Green. Of course. When we asked our teacher what was John Green like, he answered simply, not an exceptional student in the least. He wasn't happy with any of his scores. Nor was he happy making up the credit for his writing course. His work was mediocre at best. At the time. Why wasn't he happy? Someone asked the teacher. Because he failed my class and had to go to summer school. Sounds about right. Honestly. John Green has always been pretty open about acknowledging that he was a mediocre student who didn't really want to be there. I hate when people do this. But still, I'm not a teacher. But my high school environmental sciences teacher had a wife who taught high school chemistry to Kanye West. She said he was a very nice, smart, and respectful young man. Which means both of them believe his behavior now is an act to get more people to talk about him. This is the third Kanye answer I've read and all of them seem to collaborate he was a decent guy before the fame. What the hell happened to make him such a douche nozzle now? Deleted. Huh. Finally something I can contribute to. It's not much I suppose but I had. Curtis Granderson. https://en. Wikipedia. Org wiki Curtis Granderson. In class when I taught high school. Really nice kid. Pretty funny and animated. Super personable. Just overall a likable kid. Really glad he found success. Huh. Finally something I can contribute to. Your 93k of comment karma says otherwise. Not a teacher but a teacher at my school told us about how he taught T.J. Miller. He said that whenever he sees a kid now that he thinks is funny he compares them to T.J. and realizes that they aren't as funny as T.J. was. He said he was a very well-liked kid and that he was obviously a class clown of sorts. If you watch High Music Video Denver you can see my high school at the end when he starts doing our cheer with all the kids. He comes back to visit every once in a while. Great guy. Aviato. I've never seen such a dead post make it front page WTF LOL. Edit. Don't hate I still upvoted. It's a very narrow list of people that can respond. But something that many people seem interested in. Also, most of the teachers are going to be both older than Reddit's main demographic. And in school right now with limited access to Reddit. The responses themselves are somewhat unlikely to spark and controversy and get tons of comments on them from other Redditors. It's the perfect storm of many upvotes and few comments. My Econ teacher said I was in the same fraternity as Will Ferrell. And apparently whenever they had a party he would disappear for a few minutes and then start streaking. He also said that once a professor gave him a bad grade on a test that would have caused him to retake the class, so he started streaking until the professor changed the grade. Not exactly answering the question. But before my time at my high school, a yeshiva, Natasha Lyonne, Orange is the New Black, was in honors Talmud but got kicked out of school for dealing weed. I love Natasha Lyonne. I was in Stratford, Ontario and ran into someone who used to be Justin Bieber's nanny. From what I gathered he was an entitled little shit and always tried to impress girls by playing guitar and stuff. A friend of mine went to high, or probably middle, school with him and said he tried to throw a party once but everyone just showed up and trashed everything because no one liked him cause of his entitlement issues. I'm not a teacher, I know. Sorry, but I went to school with one of M. Night Shyamalan's daughters. She was nice. The popular but down-to-earth type. She wasn't arrogant or anything of that sort. And you wouldn't know she was the daughter of a celebrity when you talk to her. I've met M. Night Shyamalan before. And he was really polite. But Reddit seems to hold a disliking towards him. Wait for twist in story. Not a teacher but my friend's older brother. Let's call him A. Was in high school with John Mayer. I guess he used to go to parties and bring his guitar and try to hit on chicks. Tried to pick up his girlfriend and I punched him out. I deeply want to believe it's all true. Did I go on to torment a group of high school girls? At 8 hours old I'm probably late to this thread and will get buried. But the vice principal of my middle school taught Jon Bon Jovi in high school. According to him, and this is a direct quote, it's a good thing that boy could sing because he was dumber than a box of rocks. This is very much from a different time. But my grandmother taught math at the prestigious George School, https://en. Wikipedia. Org Wiki George School, in Pennsylvania for a few years while she was dating my grandfather before they got married. While there, she apparently taught Julian Bond, https://en. Wikipedia. Org Wiki Julian Bond. A future congressman and chairman of the NAACP. Who she said was very respectful and hardworking. Her other famous student was Claire Dulé, http://www.imdb.com name NM00011158. Ref equals TTO Street SM. Star of 2001 A Space Odyssey and more. Apparently he was shy and struggled with math but persevered. My best friend's mom knew Kurt Cobain before he was famous. He would give her demo tapes to listen to. And she'd give them back to him because, she said, they were awful. She also gave Kurt money to take the city bus because he was a broke, starving artist with literally no money for the bus. My mom taught Michael Vick in 7th or 8th grade in the inner city. She describes him as being very quiet, somewhat shy, and focused on staying out of the trouble his peers were getting into. She taught more of his siblings and became friends with his mom and has always remained close with Michael and his family. She keeps in touch with a lot of her students. She's one of those teachers that actually cares. She was also on the board of directors for his non-profit, before he got in trouble. Despite what he's most known for these days, he has always been a person who remained humble and gave back to his community. Mike Conley went to my high school and is very good friends with my previous algebra teacher. Apparently he was a very likable person and did well in her class. When he comes back to town they usually go out to lunch or something like that. Which is pretty cool. Side note, my current boss also played with Mike in high school and they are still really good friends to this day. He told me he helped Mike work on his $4 million home last year. Can you ask him why Mike Conley is made of glass and always out for injury? A close relative was the school nurse at Pharrell Williams High School. She said he would visit the nurse's office quite often, pretending to be sick so he could get out of class. She said he was very nice and creative, and wishes she could meet him in person again. One of my high school teachers went to high school with Jason Sudeikis and apparently they still hang out. He said Jason was a generally cool dude. Funny and well liked but generally under the radar. For reference, Paul Rudd went to the same high school and is essentially the school's golden boy while Sudeikis is liked, but much less acknowledged. I also had a professor in college who briefly taught with David Foster Wallace. My professor is a very polite British woman who doesn't like to talk bad about people. So she didn't talk about him much. Sudeikis is married to Olivia Wilde. I doubt he gives a shit that Paul Rudd is the golden boy from his high school. I went to school with a girl that Drake samples in one dance. Was pretty weird that Drake heard a barely known song by a girl living in our shitty little English town and took it and made it into a #1. Never spoken to her, but her life has taken a new, random turning, which is good to see. Not very interesting, but my 10th grade history teacher taught Julia Roberts and her brother Eric. I can't remember what he said about Julia, but apparently Eric is pigeon-toed and that's probably the reason why he's mainly seen from the waist up in his movies. I had no idea that Eric Roberts was Julia Roberts' brother. Holy shit. Deleted. We all are. I went to school with a few too many girls who were in adult films. I graduated over a decade ago, so not sure if that is a common occurrence now or what. Went to school with a girl who Rihanna used to babysit in Barbados. She said Rihanna was really sweet to all the kids. Deleted. I've actually heard the opposite. That she's sweet as can be and only acts like a bitch on camera for publicity. It's possible that she used to be awful, though. I've only heard stories about her after she became famous. Y'all should check out the graphic novel. My friend Dharma, someone I used to work with, went to church with Dharma. Said he was a nice, quiet guy. Which I suppose is pretty par for the course when it comes to serial killers. My 9th grade English teacher had Eliza Dushku unequipped. She was a douche-coo. Know a friend who went to school with Lewis Hamilton, British Formula 1 racing driver. Supposedly an alright guy, but hung around with a lot of dicks. His status of already being an up-and-coming racing driver, usually most people are picked out to be racers in their teens. He would get away with some much shit. I assume it's because the school wants to leave a positive mark on students who are going to world famous, so it helps them in the future. My grandmother was Prince's high school guidance counselor. Said he was a quiet and sweet kid, but that his mother was pretty weird. My softball coach in high school had taught Marilyn Manson psychology class at coach's previous position, a different school. He said he was soft-spoken, very smart, and kind of weird. Yet that's him. Oh, I've got one. When my mother was in school, she had a teacher. This was a while ago, of course. But she just told me this story. Anyways, this was a history teacher. And my mom said the teacher said these words, not exact. Bruce Springsteen. I told him that he needs to stop playing guitar and start studying history. This was before he was really famous and when he more so just played at a local bar or something. Not a huge fan of him. But I just find it a funny story. One of my teachers went to school with Damon Albarn, lead singer of Blur and Gorillaz, for anyone who doesn't know, when they were kids. Apparently he picked on her a lot because her mother was a teacher at the school. And once he scribbled over her work, proudly exclaiming, "Hand that in." Not a teacher, but was a classmate of Christina Hendricks in high school. In fact, I had a girlfriend who cheated on me, and the next time I saw her, I was hanging with Christina at a local diner. If I had access to a time machine at any point in my life, I'm totally going back to that moment and giving a more thorough introduction. Break my heart, will ya? May I introduce you to the future most incredible woman in the universe? I'd still leave out the part about being completely in the friend zone, though. A friend of mine taught Colin Kaepernick in Tulaka and said he was a pretty nice guy. Was known more for baseball. I've been teaching for 15 and fingers crossed I'll finally get someone in the news for being positive as opposed to in trouble with the law. A guy I worked with, who ended up becoming a massive Faith No More fan, went to school with Mike Patton, and apparently the guy was constantly getting in trouble for pranks and would do shit like run down the halls flashing his penis. Sounds about right. My dad was in the year below Stephen Fry in college. He says he was the funniest man he'd ever met. Also really insightful and deep. Apparently. This will probably get buried. But my old school pastor went to school with Chris Farley. They played either lacrosse or rugby together. I forget which one. Anyway, they were really close friends. My pastor's name is Matt Foley. If you know any of Chris Farley's famous skits, You'd know that Matt Foley is also the name of Chris' character that lives in a van down by the river, so yeah. They were good friends. Haha. I went to the same school as someone who became an international cricket player. He still plays, but is retired internationally. He was before my time, but was well known at the school still. The teachers all seemed to love him, especially the pay teachers, and would always tell stories about him. There was a massive framed picture of him in one of the corridors. He became the poster boy of the school. I don't know if it's because he's one of the few famous people to come from my town, but he's very popular all round and I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about him. Deleted. Yeah, those weird kids who fake wrestle won't get anywhere. Kind of late to the party, but my sister sat next to Devin Booker in high school. She said he was a pretty nice guy, but he only ever played on the freshman basketball team before transferring. My old stats teacher once taught at the school the Red Hot Chili Peppers went to. Said they were alright kids but unruly. Does Essie remember them changing the marquee to say Dandy Don Platoxanus? In Anthony's autobiography he talks about being a near straighter student, but Don Platt docked him because he thought he helped Flea cheat. So they changed the letters on the marquee and did something, I think greased a pole, so it couldn't immediately be changed. My old nail lady was good friends with Nicki Minaj's nail lady. Apparently one time Nicki flipped out in front of her entourage including her nail lady because one of her assistants came back from an errand run without mangoes. She couldn't find any mangoes. Out of season. Nicki told the assistants to go and not come back until she had some damn mangoes. She said it in a very rude way. My mangaconda don't. An ex-co-worker of mine used to date Mariah Carey. No one believed him because he wasn't very attractive. Then he brought in an old picture of them together. He was far more attractive back in the day. My aunt dated Dave England in high school apparently. Lastly, my English teacher in middle school's English teacher was J.R.R. Tolkien. Damn, can you imagine being taught composition by Tolkien? My teacher taught Magic Johnson at MSU. Said he was polite and nice. Charismatic guy but only showed up the first and last day lol. Still shook his hand at the end though. Not a teacher, but Jacob Hoggett of Headley went to my school, and was kicked out for lighting a desk on fire. Edit, a personal quote from him on regularly performing at the Juno Awards. Anytime you're faced with repetition, the creative side of you can't help but jump out. Every year I wonder. This time, can we light something on fire? I'll ask them every time if I can light my piano on fire. I toured Swarthmore Haverford College, and they pointed out a certain 4-story residence hall in which Chevy Chase lived during his short student career. Story goes, he led a cow up to the top floor. Cows can climb upstairs, but they can't climb down. The cow was shot and removed by crane. Chase was expelled. Chevy Chase was one of the speakers at my brother's graduation from Princeton in 2005. He was drunk off his ass and the majority of his speech was about how he forgot to write a speech. My grandpa beat up Dick Cheney, Dickie Cheney then, in high school. Your grandpa is an American hero. Hillary Clinton went to my high school, Maine South, and was a member of the first graduating class. She was in town a couple weeks ago actually. When she was in high school she was the leader of the Conservative Forum, no joke. Leading to a long and fruitful career of flip-flopping on today's important issues. My 5th grade English teacher had Britney Spears in her class. She said she was a sweet girl but kinda bratty from what I can remember. It always bothered her that Britney says she is from Louisiana but spent years in Macomb, Miss as a child, which she never mentions. My 9th grade English teacher had Vanilla Ice as his student and said he didn't try and barely passed his class. He later dropped out and didn't actually graduate. Not a teacher but my brother worked at Nadler's clothing store at Kenwood Mall with George Clooney. He was supposedly super funny and nice. One day, he said he was leaving for Hollywood. Brian Cushing from the Houston Texans apparently never tried in high school. He knew he was going pro from the time he was like 16. Was a smart and funny kid though. Not me. But my English teacher in high school taught a few members of All Time Low and one of them slept with her and made a song about it. Is the song called Coffee Shop Soundtrack by any chance? I saw an interview where the singer mentioned that song and said it was about being in a relationship with someone you probably shouldn't be seeing. Interesting. A faculty member at my college was on Shaq's doctoral committee. She said. He is a very nice young man. My dad is good friends with Stephen Baldwin. From what I know about him is that he's kinda full of himself and is super religious. At least it's what it seems like from my perspective. I haven't actually met him yet. Not a teacher, sorry, but I grew up next door to Philip Gaines of the Kansas City Chiefs. https://en. Wikipedia. Org wiki Philip Gaines. He was a huge dick when we were kids. He liked to push me around and pick on me all the time. Keep in mind I am handicapped and have mild autism. He was no doubt a great athlete, but I could never overlook how big of a douche he was to me. I have no idea what he's like now. But my experience with him as a kid really ruins my perception of him. I don't think I can ever like him even if he has changed. I'm not sure if this was just a rumor or not. But my cousin went to secondary school with Amy Winehouse and said she was expelled for doing drugs in the bathroom. An old neighbor's friend was Michael Jackson's singing teacher. She said he was naturally an alto. My old choir teacher was pals with Frank Zappa, who went to my high school. He said he was, well, exactly like you would expect Frank Zappa to be. Quirky. Offbeat. Musical. Curious. My mom went to high school with Kris Jenner, I think that's her name, the Kardashian mom, and says she was fairly similar to her toned-down Regina George from Mean Girls. I'll grab a photo from the yearbook next time I visit. My mom went to the same gym as Randy Savage. Said he was super nice. My hairdresser's client and lawyer is Michael Shannon's mom. Said he's really intense. Steve Zahn and Robert Kirkman live in my city. Shatner lives close. Heard he's a prick. When Kirsten Dunst and Orlando Bloom filmed Elizabethtown, they came into my town. Dunst was a bitch because everyone recognized her for Spider-Man. Jason Priestley was at the hospital my mom worked at. A co-worker said Luke Perry was really short. Different perspective, but my mother went to high school with Kane, the WWE wrestler, and apparently he was a huge dork. I go to the same school and barely anyone knows this, it's kind of funny. My great-aunt taught Percy Harvin, former NFL receiver, in middle school. She said he was a bully and spit on other children. When he ended up on my Seahawks, I could see that old habits died hard. Not me. But one of my high school teachers taught Molly Shannon, comedic actress known for Superstar, Saturday Night Live, Wet Hot American Summer, and many other movies and TV shows. Another one of my teachers, 6th grade sex ed teacher, was one of her only friends in high school. She was apparently wildly unpopular because that funny comedic nerdy persona is actually what she was like in real life back in high school. Her grades apparently weren't too stellar either, mostly C's and D's. My high school is constantly bragging about how she is an alum. She apparently can't stand the place. Supposedly. They tried to get her to come in as a guest speaker multiple times and she always declined. My grandfather was Jim Edmonds' 4th grade elementary school teacher. Called him a nice kid. But that he didn't really stand out that much. My Spanish teacher from Beaver Creek, Ohio, about 25 minutes from Yellow Springs. Oh, said she was Dave Chappell's teacher when he was younger. Can't remember if she was also his Spanish teacher. She was known to be a cool and chill teacher, so everybody pretty much liked her and vice versa. She said he was a jokester but still pretty respectful. Generally a good student, but he didn't really stand out or anything. Just a nice, funny, sometimes quiet guy. In middle school, I had a long-term substitute who was Marshawn Lynch's math teacher when he was in middle school. He said Marshawn was really quiet. Didn't talk much. Guess you could say he was just there so he wouldn't get fined. Friend of mine's dad went to high school with Obama. Said we was very laid back and was known as a stoner. Don't know the validity of the stories, but he's got the yearbook to prove it. I would love to get high with Obama. He seems like he would be very entertaining. My great-aunt taught Kevin Sorbo in the 3rd grade. He wasn't very good. Toby Maguire went to my middle school for a brief period of time. My English teacher had him as a student. He said he was not the best student. But according to the teacher, he blamed it on his constant moving from place to place as he was only in our school for a couple months. He said Toby had no real drive for school and he was happy to see he'd made something of his life. Before my middle school vice principal was at my school. He was the principal of the middle school or elementary school Taylor Swift went to. She used to leave early for singing lessons. He didn't like this very much and once told her that singing would get her nowhere. I went to school with Shawn Mendes. We sat next to each other in math in grade 10. From the couple of times I've talked to him since I last saw him, the fame hasn't changed him yet. He's still really nice. He deserves what he's achieved.